Print. My name's Ryan.
Hello, my name is Kevin.
And today we're talking about three movies of the same variety, sort of. There are some interesting intricacies and differences between them all, but we're talking about the vampire himself,
Yes.
Nosferatu. A lot of people of a certain generation know Nosferatu from SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I didn't really know that, even though I was a big SpongeBob fan. I never.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that, and now it's kind of been the light switch, which is pretty funny. So it's Nosferatu for a lot of people was just the light switch gag.
Yeah.
But in reality, Nosferatu is
The reality is
is Dracula.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's kind of
right, because there was the copyright thing. Right?
yes. So we can get into that. But overall,
overalls.
We could wear a couple. Mm-hmm. We should have wrap overalls.
Yeah, that'd be
pretty cool. Yeah. But overall, we recently did a vampires movies.
Right.
So we have talked extensively about kind of the history of vampire movies.
You could say we were a little bit of some experts.
All right, you're going to have to try that one more time. A little bit of some experts? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
With I don't know if you were trying to do an Eastern European accent, but it sounded like a baby. So I was like, what the hell is happening? What's funny is that Nosferatu, the 1922 film, kind of was missing from both our vampires, our vampire movies and our German expressionism movies. Obviously, Nosferatu was huge and a part of that movement, and one of the major ones that we just didn't get to.
It was almost as if we were saving it for this very moment.
We kind of were. The accent's going to get better, I believe. I believe it. That was a little bit better. But yeah, overall, do you have any high level thoughts about just Nosferatu in general?
What do you mean?
I guess just as a whole, looking at all three of these movies, looking at Nosferatu as I guess you could say it has its place in cinema history, and is something that people will constantly go back to. There will be another. I don't see why there wouldn't be another Nosferatu in the future. Yeah. This maybe even compared to Dracula.
Right.
What just you got any thoughts on Nosferatu?
Yeah, I mean, to summarize, I feel like you bring up good points of pulling in the vampire tradition and specifically Dracula. And then German expressionism. Yeah. And that kind of style. And that time period too, right? What this vampire means within the context of Germany and everything like that. And then so we did save it for this, Yes. I'll throw it back at you and say why did you want to save it? And why was it a particular topic that you wanted to discuss it in its own kind of right?
Yeah. Robert Eggers is a director I really enjoy. Yeah. And The Witch and especially The Lighthouse have been movies that I have that have found a special place in my movie heart. Yeah. So I knew with new Robert Eggers, I was really interested and definitely was going to go see it. And it just felt like we're always looking to make trilogies and things of that nature for this podcast, multiple movies. Right. And so it felt right to, we're going to do it. Let's combine it all together and let's see. Because I'd seen a little bit of the 1922 Nosferatu. I'd never seen Werner Herzog's version. So I had some idea, but I hadn't really given it its time of day. So I'm I think it'll be nice to watch them. And I actually had planned to watch both of them before I watched the 2024, but I never, I don't think I got around to that. So I ended up watching, I think... Yeah, I did watch the 2024 first. So that definitely color. I
did the same too.
Yeah, I think, but if you've seen Dracula, you've kind of seen Nosferatu.
Yeah,
So
story-wise.
so I had seen Dracula, and I'd seen all of the interpretations that have gone from that.
Sure.
That we've talked about. So,
Like Hotel Transylvania.
oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like Hotel Transylvania. Yes. So yeah, I really kind of just wanted to bring it all together. It felt like the right time to do it. And obviously Nosferatu came out a while ago.
Yeah.
But still relevant.
You mean the new?
The new one, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely the first one.
I didn't know what you were referencing.
Yeah. I am kind of jumping all over.
Time is just a thing.
Yes. As the Tralfalmadorians would say, so it goes. And time is just all things happening at the exact same time.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
That plays into what I have written for tour theory.
Oh, okay. Yes, there will be an episode soon, folks, about our tour theory.
Yeah.
Kevin is chomping at the bit to get that one out, so stay tuned.
Well, I feel like that plays into this too a little bit in terms of like the design of each of these three films kind of being dictated by the quote unquote auteur that's like in charge of the film,
True. Each one does have their own director's spin on it. And all of the directors do hold, well, we'll see kind of where Robert Eggers is in kind of the grand story of this whole thing. Sure. But at least F.W. Murnau and Werner Herzog, legendary filmmakers in their own right. Yeah. And Robert Eggers continuing a cinematic tradition. Yeah.
Cinematic tradition.
Yes, and those are the words I was trying to find earlier. But that's what Nosferatu feels like. That's what Dracula feels like.
Right. Because like cinematic tradition is like these stories and characters that we return to as like filmmakers and audiences. Yeah. That like feel like legacies. Like Shakespeare is kind of the kind of sort of literature tradition that gets repeated over and over. But within cinema, there's definitely like King Kong and like Little Women and like these characters. Oops, sorry. Get repeated with every generation.
Mm-hmm. And these ones all had their own unique spin. Yeah. They all were different in their own way.
Right. Like the characterization of the Nosferatu and then like the design of the film.
Yes. The pacing, everything. Yeah.
Totally.
All the way top down, all unique and different. So.
Yeah. And Eggers has also pointed that out in interviews. About how like I feel like mine is a unique thing compared to these other guys. Yeah. Not to say that it's better, but it's just like I'm doing it my own way, XYZ.
Yeah. And I think anyone can argue that any of these are the best one.
Right. Yeah.
It just depends where you're coming from.
Totally.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. There's an argument for all three of these.
I'd hear all of them out.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was just going to start bringing us in.
Going into it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like, question.
Throw it.
Like, kind of to introduce us to Nosferatu, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, how does this compare? Like, kind of specifically, how does this compare to Dracula?
Oh, that's good because there's some history there.
Just because, the copyright thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's start there. A big thing that happened back in the day when copyright was still... I'd be curious where the history of copyright was at that point. But it obviously...
Probably young.
Yeah, but patents, copyright, that has always been a part of the film industry. Yeah. I think there's an interesting story about how Edison was really trying to hold and keep a stranglehold on film technology in general. Yeah. And that was in, I think, New York where that was happening. And so
East Coast.
Yeah, East Coast. Yeah. And so people fled to Los Angeles. Yeah. And that was a big part of the reason they moved out here was to get out of there. And as soon as the people would come to sue them, they would just tear down the studio and move and start a new production company. Yeah. And so it was just a problem they couldn't stop. Yep. And in that same vein, obviously this was in Germany. Yeah. And I think Dracula, the book, is German. I actually don't know off the top. So this might have all been kind of dealing with kind of German laws.
I can look it up.
Please. Thank you. But Nosferatu is just Dracula. Like it was
Irish.
Oh, Irish. Okay. It was copying the story almost exactly. So much so that the estate, I believe it was the estate at this point. I don't know if Mary. Oh no, that's not Mary Shelley. Who?
Bram Stoker.
Oh, Bram Stoker, of course. They sued to have every single copy of Nosferatu destroyed.
The movie.
The reels of the film completely destroyed because it didn't. They did not have the rights to do it. So we are fortunate, because many of them were destroyed, that some still live to this day. It is actually an amazing feat that we even have this Nosferatu, because it was legally meant to be completely destroyed in every corner of the globe. And I think there's some really interesting stories, I don't know off the top of my head, of how they got like the copies that we know of today. Because there are multiple, and there are restorations. I saw a restored version.
It's like an amalgamation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
they're pulling
copies
from different things. There's always like some whenever you talk about like some of these like restorations and how they find a frame here or there, it always seems like there's some copy in South America or something like that. It's always just kind of really random.
Yeah. Because it's just like these film reels that get left in a closet.
Yeah.
And, they have to look at every single place that purchased it and like looking through their storage. Yeah. They do a crazy amount of work.
It's so cool. I just think that's just such an amazing job and important thing.
Yeah.
And honestly should be funded by the state. This is culture as it's meant to be, protected and consumed.
Right. Generally, these projects are funded by like universities or like state funded whatever.
Yep. As they should be.
Or something. Yeah.
That's great. So that is kind of Nosferatu came out of that.
Yeah.
And the original Nosferatu and the Nosferatu, the Robert Eggers 2024 Nosferatu uses totally different character names than Dracula. Werner Herzog's version uses the same names as Dracula, which is interesting. That one decided to get rid of even Nosferatu. I think Nosferatu was a term used for something else, but all the characters are as they would be in Dracula.
Right.
So that's an interesting little difference, is that they started with totally changing all the names and everything like that. And I mean, you could tell from like the Bram Stoker version of Dracula, the Universal version of Dracula, very different.
Yeah.
With the Bela Lugosi type of Dracula, so different than Nosferatu, who is spindly and long and really scary.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious.
Looks like a monster.
Yeah. I'd be curious how scared people were of Bela Lugosi's Dracula back in the day, because maybe that was a little scarier than it's so done.
Makeup and everything.
Yeah. And we've seen so many interpretations. It's just, Dracula is not scary anymore. would I be scared if I ran into him in a castle? Maybe, because I'd be kind of worried at that point. I'd be like, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
But in general, if I see someone in a cape and a lot of makeup, it's like, oh, that's not really.
Yeah. It's a character.
Yeah, it's just a character. Hope you're having fun over there.
Yeah, no more scared than I would be of Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah. Or like
Santa.
All of the Nosferatus have their own level of horror built in. Yeah. Really terrifying, each and every one in their own way.
Totally.
I think something that is big in Dracula and kind of goes, it creeps up in intensity as we go through the years, is sexuality, or just the sexual nature of these films.
Yeah, the vampire.
Yes.
Sexuality.
And Robert Eggers, who in all of his films deals with sexuality.
Sure, yeah.
And so this one is no different.
Right.
And so that plays a much larger role. And in the same way is the Lily Rose Depp character has a lot more screen time, agency, and just more character than all of the others. And I think...
Or just compared to the 2022 version, or 1922 version.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the 1970s version, she's not, it still is like this kind of creeping in the castle for most of the film kind of movie.
Sure.
And so I really like that Robert Eggers went that way, opened up his own portions.
Sure.
And
Yeah. So maybe we start with Eggers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you like about it?
Yeah.
'Cause you saw it first, right?
I did see it first.
Yeah.
I had watched, I didn't get to finish it, but I watched like half of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Okay.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's really insane and crazy.
What's his name?
It's got Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Keanu Reeves. Winona. And so when I watched it, I was definitely like, oh, this is... It feels like a carbon copy in a lot of ways. And that's kind of what... I mean, it's just been a storyline that's been done a lot. Yeah. So, for me, it wasn't... I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I wasn't surprised, really. Besides, like, it was just... Overall, it was just a really intense, interesting vibe experience. It had the Robert Eggers seal of approval. It just felt... like one of his films, dark. I love the use of shadows and sexuality.
We're talking about
Eggers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Dracula.
The Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I think I could say a lot of the same things about that one too.
Sure.
That one's really sexual. And just it just goes so intense, not in just the sexuality, but just in like characterization and everything like that. So yeah, no, I think that I really enjoyed it. Out of the three, I have another favorite, but it still felt like, oh, this is a really cool interpretation of Robert Eggers' version of Dracula.
Yeah.
And I know Robert Eggers is on track to now do like a werewolf movie too.
Oh, wow.
It was so successful, and just kind of keeps Eggers in the loop in the conversation, which is cool. Like I think he's a director that has some really interesting ideas.
Yeah. He's consistent.
Yeah, definitely. That's how it feels. What about you? What did you think of 2024's Nosferatu?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I just liked I like a movie that gets reactions out of the audience, and I think this was a fun one to watch with other people.
Yeah.
Just because of how like shocking, I guess, I don't know, not that there's crazy amount of shock value, but it is like overtly sexual compared to like the other ones, I guess, where the other ones are more subtle and like hinting at it. So I think like Lily Rose Depp's character is like really funny or interesting. I don't know. There's like a level of comedy I feel like with this movie.
Yeah.
Just with like, I don't know. There's like Nick Holt is like a little bit of a cuck with like with the vampire character, and it's just kind of a interesting twist to this thing, along with it being like kind of design heavy, like with the lighting, the like camera work. There's a lot of like VFX stuff, like dreamy kind of VFX stuff, which I feel like plays in line with like The Lighthouse and like Northman. It was just kind of like a good Eggers movie, like the history. It feels like this was what, I mean, he kind of says this, but it does feel like this is what a vampire experience would be in real life back in the day or whatever. Yeah. Like with all the mythology and like involving these like gypsy characters that I feel like are in the other copies of this too, right?
Yeah, every single one has like the same beats, and the gypsy characters play a very important role because they're a superstitious religious bunch, right? And he's kind of coming from a business mindset, and so that's him being thrown into this now kind of supernatural world where he's just going to go see the client, and they are the ones that really let him know, like, okay, you're about to go somewhere you're not supposed to go. Right.
I think that scene where they do that like sacrificial thing and then like kill
that was unique to this. Yeah.
That was really evocative, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like that comes from the history and like the research and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool.
Yeah, and to jump off that, I think the design of Nosferatu in this one felt very historically correct.
Right.
Like if that's what you're into.
Person.
Yeah, exactly. Like it looked like an Eastern European ruler or baron or something like that, you know, a count, maybe.
I wasn't vibing with the voice in that regard. I felt like it was too...
that one?
Yeah. Just like the design of it. Not so much the accent, but like how it was being mixed. It was like too fantastical.
Interesting.
Like, I don't know. It just felt like a weird mix to have realism and then that. It just felt weird to me, I guess. I don't know. But it was fun.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It's interesting how Nosferatu feels like it is more or more literaturely correct.
Sure. Than Dracula. Yeah.
Like especially with the use of wolves.
Sure.
Which is a part of the Dracula story.
Yeah.
And definitely plays into the Nosferatu
in this
bits
one.
a lot more. And in this one.
Yeah. Because he chases them out the window with the wolves.
Yeah. And wolves, I think even like vampires can turn into wolves. I mean, there's like it's
lore.
not just bats all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before, but we you know, vampires are kind of a trope. They're a cinematic thing now.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that definitely got lost in like the cinema version of it, that you feel like this movie's trying to layer on the past again, like looking at it reminds me of how like Greek statues, right? We see these beautiful marble white statues, you know what I'm talking about, like David and things like that. Well, back in the day, like we've gotten used to them looking like this. Back in the day, they were painted. Like they were colorful. They had eyes drawn on them. And now we just look at them and they're like voidless, like just like bodies.
Right.
And they're beautiful in their own right. And we kind of like think like, oh, that's
how it was.
No, they were all painted. And that's kind of what this feels like. It's like painting that.
Or like fossils.
Yeah. Like you could look at it and I think plenty of people looked at fossils way back when and were like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
This is a dragon, for example.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah,
and
I saw a post of like these giant mammoth skulls. The Greeks would find them and think
they look
that
like
they
Cyclops.
were Cyclops.
Yeah. And you can, if you look at a mammoth skull,
it looks like that shit.
Absolutely does. Yeah.
Because it has like a giant divot in the middle of its forehead.
Yeah, it's so insane that, from just a fossil, you can't possibly
imagine the right thing.
Yeah, you would have no idea there is a trunk that comes out the front and things like that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, this 2024 Nosferatu definitely felt like, all right,
a return to form.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it feels like, oh, what would this film like using the tools that we have now, like what is the way to make this film as originally contextualized, you know?
Yes.
While
also feeling very modern.
Right. Well, because you have like the VFX and like the camera work and like all these advanced levels of like capturing the story.
Yeah.
It definitely feels more like of today and stuff like that. And I guess even with the characterizations too, like just being more, I don't know, forward thinking or
I mean they definitely are there's more varied expressions.
Sure.
I feel like in this, where you have the highs and the lows, where the other ones feel very theatrical.
Sure.
Especially like a silent film is going to be very theatrical.
Right.
And even the Werner Herzog version, there's just like a lot of super quiet and just like wide eyes and just kind of sort of things that all the characters are doing that feel, and even like, we'll get to the Werner Herzog, but that just felt so strange. In a lot of ways, it was just so unnatural. I don't know. It was a very weird one.
So between these next two, like, which one did you gravitate towards next in terms of like the sequence of you watching?
Oh, I mean, I went backwards in time. So
you
I
went
ended
to
up
the
going
70s?
to the 70s
Okay.
next. And then I finished off with the 22.
Sure. What drew you to Herzog first? Because I went to 22 first.
I think I think it was mainly just because I wanted to go. I wanted to go at it in this linear sense.
Sure.
And I had hoped to go linear, but in the
From the-
future,
yeah,
from
yeah.
the past. But so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back and see what
Trace
it's
the
like
breadcrumbs.
exactly,
Yeah.
just to kind of see it that way.
Sure.
Why did you go to 22?
Well, also for context, I ended up doing it so I watched Eggers when it came out, and then I watched 22, 70, and 24 like all in one day.
Wow.
Again. So yeah, I just wanted to watch it in order to like see what was taken from each version and passed to the next thing.
Yeah.
And, like what was blah 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 blah. Yeah. I'm curious if that has any effect on like your understanding of the film, like going from past to future or future to past.
Yeah.
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 'Cause- yeah. What did you take away from Herzog?
Herzog felt like, I mean, it felt European, might be a way to put it. Just like, and I get this sometimes when I watch like Eastern European material of different kinds.
It's like slower and
heavier. There's something like feels even more foreign than like Japanese or something like that. Like
completely new cinematic language.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I watched this, I was just like uncomfortable for a lot of it in like a viewing sense. I'm like, this is so weird. It felt like this should have been cut a long time ago. Like we're still sitting here. Like Klaus Kinski's performance is so strange.
Yeah.
And there's just
I love this.
Yeah. I think like overall, I just thought the acting was strange, and I'm pretty sure it was all dubbed after the fact.
Oh wow!
If I remember listening to it and everything, so there was definitely like that Italian, like
neorealism.
I don't know. Did they do that neorealism too? I just know they did it in spaghetti westerns.
Yeah,
but
that was like their norm for a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like it comes from that kind of place too. And so, it was a lot. It was a lot of that. It was a lot of hanging around that castle.
Yeah.
And having seen what they did in Nosferatu, having seen what they did in Dracula, it was like, it's just interesting to see where they decided to stay.
Cut the line. Yeah.
Yeah. And they really wanted to, like, the castle was such a vital part, so much more vital than I think all the other ones.
For sure.
And
a lot more like wide shots and like composed elements. I would say.
Yeah.
Like very like poetic in the visuals.
Yeah. Something interesting is that the castle used in
this one,
in Werner Herzog's, same castle used in 2024.
Wow, cool.
But they shot in totally different places of the castle.
Oh, wow.
So they never used, I don't think they used the same location twice.
But
it was in the same place.
It's very emblematic of these two movies.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, you're definitely in the same region, but like pointing at different spots.
Yep, you have a totally different way of looking at it. And I think I'm just learning. I also ended up watching Fitzcarraldo somewhat around that same time, Werner Herzog. And
that feels important to understanding this too.
It kind of does.
Their relationship and stuff.
Yeah, the Klaus Kinski, which I need to see Aguirre, Wrath of God. That's the infamous one. But there's the Werner Herzog-Klaus Kinski relationship is big.
Yeah.
And Werner Herzog's fiction films are interesting. I'm so used to his documentary, and I've fallen in love with those.
Right.
And his just outlook on life and everything like that.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting figure. But I'm definitely just now diving into being like, okay, I'm realizing Herzog's cinematic language and what his directing style is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that's what I ran into the most
with this.
Was like, oh, I didn't come prepared. It felt a little bit like that. Like,
sure, yeah.
Like there was just a lot here that I think maybe I needed to chew on a little bit. And I definitely have a much higher appreciation of it now that I've watched another Werner Herzog and I've thought about it some more.
Sure. Nice.
But yeah, no, it was just, it was different. And I think that's another thing, as you've been saying. And I don't necessarily know I can't wait to learn more about the auteur theory. But maybe that's what it is just like these directors coming at it with their own particular vision and making it their own. That's what I kind of ran into with this. Yeah.
Because you had also brought up before even watching him is that like Herzog kind of brings the original fervor of this mythology because he comes from that region of like Eastern European whatever and having like an understanding of what these images mean and stuff like that. So I definitely found it interesting like how he brings all that into like the imagery of this character, the castle, the story and stuff. Like it definitely feels way more like closer to like Soviet cinema than it is to like Western, whereas like Eggers is like so clearly Hollywood.
Yes.
You know, like this is like the Hollywood system and the tools that you get to work with.
Yeah.
And it looks really nice and glitzy and like, you know, best costume, best blah blah blah.
Yeah. It is Oscar winning.
Yeah. So definitely in the production mode and stuff, like you can see a sharp difference between Herzog and Eggers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting and very still camera work.
Yeah.
Kind of letting Klaus Kinski kind of like live in the scene and as the vampire.
Documentary, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It does have that. I think documentary is probably a really good way to describe how it feels.
Right.
In a lot of senses.
Yeah. Just like capturing a person living
it's
in
just
this space.
So strange, and you can just tell it's just a weird day on set.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
It's fucking strange.
He's like in character the whole time.
I think something that I think they did right in
Herzog
in Eggers that they I guess technically they did this thing basically in 1922 and 1979. They have scenes of Nosferatu carrying coffins.
Okay.
And walking around with his coffin. And I gotta say, it's silly. It's so silly looking.
It looks dumb.
It looks so dumb to me. Like this giant coffin and like even like Klaus Kinski walking around the city streets, like carrying this thing. It's like, this is, I don't know why it's not scary to me at all. Maybe it was back in the day, but even it's just so strange. There's nothing like that. And there's no goofy, like seeing like, and I think
don't they put it on the carriage or something?
That's how they get it to different places.
Yeah.
But there's a point kind of right at the end when he's going to his new home that he carries it to that.
Right, to the ship or whatever. Or from the ship.
From the ship. Yeah. So that was just something that I just realized. I was like, oh my God, it's so goofy looking. But
that's the first thing Ryan's taken out of his Nosferatu version.
Yes, is like we're no carrying coffins. We're gonna make this work, you guys. We'll put them on wheels.
Yeah, let's get a wheelbarrow.
Yeah. But to give some props to that really interesting scene with the rats. I think rats obviously play a part in Herzog's.
Oh,
the kind of like all of the rich people eating in kind of the town square, and I think it's like people realizing like they're going to be dying soon or what have you.
Oh shit.
And so like the rich are eating outside and the rats are all over the table of food, under the chairs. Yeah, no, I remember reading, it's a very studied scene and very purposeful. You can pull a lot of things from it of like the wealthy and the poor and all of these things, and it was just it felt like it had a lot of and maybe it was even like hitting you over the head a little bit with subtext,
right,
as some of these things do, where it's like, oh, this doesn't feel real.
It's very absurdist or whatever.
Yeah, but then Werner Herzog's movies don't feel real.
Yeah,
they feel like they are
evocative.
It's evocative.
It's going for the image.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say I can't say for certain whether his films are dreamy. There are aspects that feel.
This movie definitely felt dreamy.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah, because Fitzcarraldo doesn't really.
It
feels nightmarish. It feels intense. It feels like turning it up to 11 and like seeing like faces melt.
Yeah,
is how it feels.
Sure.
Like standing behind a jet engine.
I think wherever emotional level Herzog's at, it's always going to be intense.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. And also that just like the rats and stuff, I feel like drives home the time period of like the Black Plague.
Yes.
And like the influence. I feel like this mythology stems from that a lot.
Totally.
Especially with like women's sexuality and like the rats, that imagery and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like the town falls to sickness in a lot of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever like Nosferatu is like introduced to the town and stuff, I feel like that's a metaphor for like illness and stuff like that. Or plague or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's in the subtext, but it also feels very literal with the rats.
Right.
Right. And they're not,
because that's just like such a strong symbol of that like moment in our history, right?
Yeah.
The Black Plague and the association with rats and like dirty cities and stuff like that.
Yeah, and stay away from that person or
Right.
that, keep them locked away. Don't go there.
The hysteria.
Yeah. Well,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I don't know, kind of fucking tangent, but like the way Eggers in other films is like for in The Witch, for example, is like using like showing how like mythology comes from like hysteria against women and their sexuality and stuff. I feel like there was a little bit of that in here in Nosferatu, but I feel like could have been more like concrete within the narrative, I suppose.
Which Nosferatu?
This Eggers.
Eggers.
Yeah.
Because I feel could have been more explicit.
Yeah, I just feel like it could have been like more. I guess it. I don't know. It's definitely like forefronted and like very involved, but I just feel like it could have been more. Like I think The Witch does it well,
very well. I
you know
think.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like I don't know what the solution is, but I just feel like it could have been more like we could do another draft of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It definitely felt like it was a part of it, and then it's kind of like a weapon at the end.
Right.
It's kind of like the secret weapon.
Right.
But it's just kind of here. It doesn't really say a lot about her character or anything, or even like we don't know the sexual relationship between her and her husband or anything like that.
It's just kind of like thrown around.
Yeah, it just kind of is.
Yeah. I just wish it was more of like a plot element.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I once again, also, I don't know what that could have looked like, but that is an interesting direction for the next Nosferatu.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an interesting aspect of like something that historically we've kind of like subtextually discussed it like through this like the text of Nosferatu and like vampire movies in general. But I feel like just having something that's super like explicitly that thing and like discussing it within the history, because I feel like there is a history of that happening within our society. So I just feel like there was so much potential for that to be like
especially
open
with
commentary.
Eggers.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just seems like the kind of person to go down that path. Or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was just something.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to see that turned up.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Just lean into it.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's something there within the history and stuff.
We will definitely have to do a Francis Ford Coppola, Bram Stoker's Dracula, because that is much more sexual.
Yeah, I'm
very,
down.
very, very. So, and that's like just so explicitly that it might be exactly what we're looking for in terms of
like
what that looks like. Yeah.
On the
list. I do want to just talk more Francis Ford Coppola at a certain point because he just seems so weird and interesting to me.
Yeah.
Having made like some of the greatest films of all time.
He's on the list.
But also some but then just disappeared, never stopped making, but just has never gotten back to his glory days.
Yeah.
Just an interesting figure and especially Bay Area, too.
Bay Area.
Bay Area.
Yeah. Very true.
Great.
Cool.
1922.
So yeah, what did you? Was there anything within 1922 that was like aha moment for you, or like, oh, this is, or was it just like, this is a movie?
I mean, there's definitely like, you feel like when you watch Nosferatu, if you are a fan of movies, like you have seen this movie in some form or another.
Right.
You've seen the imagery from this pulled. You're seeing we're talking 1922, so movies had not been around very long.
Yeah.
So we're seeing some really amazing work. Like Student of Prague is like that too, where you're just seeing like, wow, we're watching horror movies being created and constructed, and the use of shadows.
Right.
I mean, just like whenever I'd see something with shadows, I would just, I'm obviously running through my head like, how did they do that?
Right.
There's some amazing shots of his shadowy hand going towards, on the wall. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I can imagine how they shot it with the light, but the fact that everything is practical is
Cameras
amazing.
Moving and everything.
Yeah. I think I was really just impressed by the design of Nosferatu in it as well. Sure. It's so strange and weird and stilted, much more than the other ones, which I think I definitely feels like a style of horror and what was scary back then.
Sure.
And just in general, you watch like a lot of silent films and it's a lot of like static moving around poses, like to things, I guess maybe theater. So from a silhouette, it's like the scariest Nosferatu. That's all you really needed
like
for
the imagery.
The image that alone is enough.
Yeah.
I feel like Klaus Kinski still has some of that, but you kind of need to see the way his eyes never like blink and how scary that fucking shit is, and the makeup and the teeth, and then
and the teeth.
Yeah, that fucking teeth. What were they thinking?
George Washington-esque.
Yeah. And then I feel like you need a little more context to be really terrified of Eggers' Nosferatu. That's a little more like a real kind of character, a lot less monster right out the gate. Because even you see Nosferatu fairly early in Eggers, and it didn't seem, he's basically just kind of dressed in his garb with the hat and everything like that, I think. So so that's kind of what I pulled.
Well, he's kind of like, in the beginning, he's like muscular and all ugly and shit, right?
Yeah.
When he's like over Lily Depp's body.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
So. Oh, come, my pretty. And your little dog, too.
Yeah. No, I agree with all those points.
Yeah. What about you? What anything kind of like stand out as like, oh, this is something I can really appreciate, or did anything feel really Kevin?
No, definitely like the German expressionism. Like I definitely remember the most part of it, like the lighting and everything. Story wise, I definitely remember like thinking this feels very like Dracula, like what we had watched. Certain shots also were like super similar, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Which would mean Dracula pulled from Nosferatu,
right?
Because that came out after. Yeah.
So yeah, there is an interesting like push and pull relationship between this and Dracula.
Oh yeah,
that just seems really obvious after watching this movie.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's like the original adaptation of Dracula, so to speak.
Yeah. In film.
Yeah, exactly. So, just taking those things, and I definitely feel like. Every time I watched one of these, I was like, "That's my favorite one," or "That's my favorite one."
Yeah.
So I liked each of them for the styles that they lived in and like the worlds that they build, because I think they do them very uniquely. Like a lot of the times, because of the nature of the industry that they're in at that moment, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll definitely never get a Murnau type version of this
for a while
again, right? Unless like it's just A24 like extremely weird like silent film
Yeah,
that someone goes for.
Yeah, something, or even like no one's done a modern take of Nosferatu. I think there's
Right.
a place for, or like a present day Nosferatu,
that would be
or something like change it up. Everyone's been so faithful
Right.
to the material, but that also feels like that's Nosferatu's
MO.
thing.
Yeah.
Is like you're gonna play ball.
It's this world that you have to.
Where Dracula is much more, you can pull what you want out of it.
It's a character.
Exactly, yeah. And vampires we've pulled out.
Interesting.
So Nosferatu
I wonder why
feels
that
like,
is. Because it's like the same shit, right?
It is. I genuinely think it's because Bela Lugosi's Dracula was an insane hit. Like it just
bigger than the film itself.
It was, I think, and it spawned sequel after sequel of like Dracula versus the werewolf, and it just went on and on and on,
right?
And just universal monsters.
Well, I think being a part of American industry leads to that too.
Totally,
yeah,
because everything that was, and I mean, German Expressionism died in its form at a certain point and became something new once it came to America.
Right.
And so that might be the same sort of thing here, is like Nosferatu became Dracula.
Yeah.
And that's, and obviously I plenty of German filmmakers were involved in Dracula, I would imagine, and just in the Universal monster thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was during that time. So
yeah. Just shows this like kind of incestual relationship that these two things have with each other.
Yeah. They both kind of need to exist, and it's interesting the place that Nosferatu fits in it.
Right.
That it is very specific.
Right. That it's like even more specific than Dracula.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like you're playing with lore at a certain point. Like it is the story. But it's cool that you can still have that. And it can have all of these auteurs come in and put their own spot on it.
Right.
Really like it.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see like a movie that confronts that kind of legacy of like Dracula versus Nosferatu.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
Yeah. What
would
could that
be
possibly be? Yeah, I don't know.
Tinker with those ideas.
Yeah. Something interesting there. I definitely think that a modern take of Nosferatu would be interesting.
Right. Like tracing back the roots and like being tied to a ghost of something.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. So then like, I don't know if this is a question, but like after seeing after talking about and like looking back at 22 and 79, does that change your opinion on Eggers at all, or like influence the impact of Eggers?
I don't know. I think I think I just need to watch Eggers again. I think that will help me kind of understand, because at the moment I still am kind of like living in the same space of it. It feels like an Eggers film. It feels like it's in a line of movies, as we've kind of said.
Sure.
I don't think I've gained any extra appreciation or anything for that.
Sure.
If anything, I've gained even more appreciation for the 22 of just like how powerful its images were and the story was, because Nosferatu, this is something. Dracula is the book. Nosferatu is the movie, and so Nosferatu is a cinematic character first.
Sure.
And so
it
that's
has to
also
live in that space.
Yeah, and so I think all of these wrapped up, it proves that, and I think I've gained even more appreciation for the 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about, was there one, now that you've kind of, it's been a while, so is there one that you like sticks with you a little bit more?
Herzog's,
yeah.
I just remember it most explicitly.
Yeah.
A lot of the shots and like the design, it's like super gothic.
Yeah.
And just so palpable and rich in textures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like Eggers, but it just like seems so glossy to me.
Yeah.
Like super Hollywood. Which I'm kind of allergic to. But
we're going to change that, because we're going to be watching a lot of stuff.
Oh my God.
Oh God. You're going to melt your mind.
Movie Web like trained me to like really be okay with that.
Yeah.
Or to like embrace critical mindset within
That's
like
good.
blockbuster stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there is an interesting, to jump off that point, is like Hollywood is its own sort of genre or its own like production mode,
Yeah.
like within the grand scheme of cinema.
Yeah.
And I think we over like value the impacts of Hollywood in a lot of ways just because it is like the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is interesting looking at like studio movies as its own sort of like category.
Yeah.
And how it's progressed from like the 70s, like its relationship with indie cinema. I think these are like really interesting things, like the history of like industry and, you know, the progression of trends and stuff like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think we're obsessed with history.
Yeah,
of this whole thing, and it's huge, and genre, and how and the studio model.
Yeah,
and how money affects everything in this business, and how it ever since the very beginning.
Right. And just like how we get to this point now.
Yeah.
It's super interesting.
So it is. It's interesting that the studio took a stab at
it again.
At it. Because I don't think it's like the other ones felt very not
indie.
Yeah. You know, this definitely had that studio thing, but
yeah. The fucking techno crane, the like VFX shot.
Oh yeah, the flying over the city and everything like that. Yeah, there's so many like, damn. I just like I definitely was watching Eggers and being like, I feel like the filmmakers before wish they could have done these things. Like it definitely was God. like the technical prowess was insane in Eggers' version.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so tight, very controlled. Yeah, I don't think anything was loose. The camera was never loose.
No, I mean it's all very like calculated and like choreographed.
Yeah.
Yeah, very controlled. I mean, I listened to a lot of his like interviews and stuff, and like that city is like a set. Like they built that whole town basically.
Crazy.
Within the whatever. Like on the beach, they had to like add sandbanks. Wow. To like make the shot look good or whatever. Yeah, there was just like a lot that they were doing.
Movies are so crazy.
Yeah, it's like when you really have studio backing, it feels like you control the universe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
In the way that you really want to as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think there's an interesting point in our cinema history of like having all this money and access and like resources and then like the creative prowess to like really back that up at the same time.
Yeah.
Very rare in like film, in American film, where like you kind of get both of those things.
I think that there's a conversation for another time, but Eggers obviously coming from that independent A24 space. Many directors come from that space and are brought into the studio system.
Yeah, it's kind of a pipeline.
It is a pipeline. Marvel loves to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's mainly for them because they like to have a little more control over some of these newer directors.
Right. But it's also branding. It's like, hey, we're indie. Look at these indie people.
Yeah, it feels like they need to keep doing that. But it's also a tragedy, I feel like, in a lot of ways, too, because it just doesn't feel authentic. Like there's the Marvel machine. It doesn't have that thing anymore.
Yeah.
And
I think they really need to take bigger risks. Like I feel like I mean that general but like make an auteur movie. Like truly invest in an auteur making one of your movies and let them make a character film. You know? Instead of doing all these giant like serial
everything has to be
things.
Everything has to be a big battle.
Yeah.
Like big third act fight.
Right. Like, you know, make a movie.
Yeah.
Like, take a chance and make a movie the way movies are generally made instead of doing, like, a TV show, basically.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be cool.
That is a good point. It is definitely more like I mean, it's serialized, so it is definitely very TV-like.
Right. Because Infinity War, like, that movie's awesome. But I'm like, damn, this would be a cool, like, 20-episode TV show.
Yeah.
Like, having all these characters in like a big way.
Yeah. It is pretty amazing what they were able to do with Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, that was kind of my ending with them, and I tried to keep watching, but I just couldn't. And I know they're about to jump back into the whole thing again with Doomsday.
Right.
And they have a lot of, I think in some ways the movies are possible. I mean, they'll prove wrong or right, but they might just be better with more
Yeah.
people in them and less like. I feel like it just forces them to make different movies.
Yeah.
Versus like the same 3-act structure.
Just try
stuff.
something else.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Because Infinity War definitely felt like it was doing different things and being interesting. And
mixing up the characters.
I feel like what the Avengers movies can do, that the other ones can, is they can actually like actually move story forward. Where everything else has to be like, okay, we can't really push things too much.
This movie is the beat.
Yes, exactly.
Is the story beat.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's so much weight to like push into. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Like you can just like have all these things matter more. Like mixing up the characters.
That's what it feels like, yeah.
Yeah.
And it definitely is just more interesting.
Yeah. It is totally.
Yeah.
You get to see things that you're like, oh, they don't belong together, but this works. Like, oh, this is cool.
And maybe it also is a little bit of like you've already had a whole movie to kind of learn who these people are, that they don't feel like they have to shove it down your throat, like have like this whole exposition monster show up, you know? Totally. Which I think is helpful in the end. Because that also is something that kind of
that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it all leads back to Marvel at some point.
It does, and this podcast will as well. We're gonna go there at a certain point.
Yeah. Like after Endgame and Infinity War, I watched all the movies up to that point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
same.
And I was like, oh, I'm gonna study this.
Yeah.
Like as its own thing. And I think that's it's a cool way to look at blockbuster filmmaking. For sure.
I think there's so much to talk about with the Infinity Saga.
Yeah.
From a story standpoint and especially from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
And that, like, what Kevin Feige was able to do, because it was his baby.
Yeah. From the ground up.
Yeah.
They were bankrupt and shit.
Yeah. And how that model of making movies, GFX heavy, reshoots up the wazoo, how that doesn't work in the long term in some ways. Like, I mean, it certainly is not working now. Whatever was working before. And if you look back, like some of it really wasn't working, but they had figured out some really strong pillars to work off of.
Right.
And that was enough to keep the thing going. Yeah.
For sure.
Where now it's like they lost touch. They're rudderless.
Yeah.
And I know they're going to
rudderless.
Yeah, they're trying some new things, and they've got the big 2-part Avengers movie, so we'll see.
Should just bring in another, showrunner, basically.
Yeah. Just
like have a new thing going.
Something brand new. Yeah. Something totally different.
Like a new voice.
Yeah. That would just
it's cool. DC is like, I feel like learning the right lessons.
That's what it feels like.
In terms of like building out these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see with Superman. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And depending on when this podcast comes out, I don't know if it's come out or not, but I am interested. But yeah, because James Gunn, he is an interesting person with a filmmaking philosophy that is different.
Right.
And having been someone that came out has done a lot in the Marvel machine and was successful.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems like the right fit.
Right.
From like a production, auteur, whatever standpoint, like he fits the model of like what they're going for. I feel like, yeah, it feels like it.
So we'll see. Maybe they'll throw in Nosferatu or something in the next Avengers.
I feel like J.J. Abrams would be a cool like person.
I'm so over.
Or like a Michael Bay or something.
I mean, I would be. I mean, I'm definitely interested in seeing what that movie looks like for sure.
Just like bring in some like force of nature.
Yeah. I think they did,
into the fold.
They tried to do that with Sam Raimi,
but like take over the whole thing.
Yeah. I agree.
Not just like one film. Yeah, but like here you make a Marvel like trilogy or whatever. Mm-hmm. Take a few whatever characters you want, like full reign. Yeah, like
and you'd think they'd be able to with like the multiverse,
right? Just like bring in new
everything.
Actors and shit. You can make a new Iron Man.
Yeah, and brand new,
and then involve. Like the OG Tony Stark at some point or whatever.
I think they're just terrified of like the audience is going to be so confused.
But who cares?
Like, I mean, of course, that's the right way to put it.
Like, just fucking do it and have the like bad press is good press.
Yeah.
You know, if people are talking about it, like they already recasted RDJ into their new universe.
Yeah.
So it's like
you can do whatever you want.
The rules don't matter.
Yes,
Yeah,
they are movies, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
These are actors. They're doing their job. It's like it does all these things. They don't fucking matter.
They don't fucking matter.
You can just do whatever.
It's
you
so
want.
silly.
Yeah. Ooh. I wonder what a reboot Iron Man would look like. I feel like these things are so precious to them.
Oh,
They're like treasures of gold.
Yeah.
They don't want to like mess that like legacy up.
Yeah. They'll do it though. They'll do it.
They have to at some point.
Yeah, I'd say like, within 10 years we're gonna have a new Iron Man for sure.
Within 10 years, yeah, that seems like makes sense.
Yeah, I would definitely think maybe in the next go round.
Oof.
Something.
Yeah. I feel like it has to be like Feige-less to do that.
I wonder.
I feel like he's too precious with the old shit.
Yeah. I'd be curious because I know I'm pretty sure they're going to do a new Black Panther in this new one.
Right, bringing in new characters because they've already done that with Captain America.
Yeah,
it's now whatever.
Yeah,
but
I think that they're actually going to have like a Black Panther from another, like the same character name, but from another universe.
Oh, cool.
So that's how they recast things now. It's like, you just pull it from another universe.
Right.
And obviously they've been very...
213.
Yeah. They've been very precious about Chadwick Boseman, obviously. They're trying not, they don't want to do anything with that.
Racist shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So...
Okay.
There it is.
Where are we landing this ship?
We're
crashing it with rats.
I think we are crashing it. There's a giant Marvel Avengers ship above us. It has flown
plague.
In. Yes, the Marvel plague has hit. Oh God, I was gonna say hit the towers.
It's the second tower.
But yeah, so Nosferatu, unofficial trilogy. Spanning decades.
There's more of this, right?
I think there are. These are just like the three
main ones.
Yeah, three main ones.
Spanning centuries.
Century.
Century.
Yeah. Now you listeners, you can tell we've kind of gone a little insane now.
Yeah.
I feel like now we're just saying things.
I think I came in a bit.
You came insane. In a little wild.
Yeah. You were trying to like rein me in for a second.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, do you have anything high-minded to say?
And you were like, what?
I was like, what's going on?
I'm going to throw this back at you.
Yeah. I'm going to answer this question with a question.
Yes, exactly. Which I'm fine with. All right, folks, we got it. We're pulling the ripcord now. Watch Nosferatu.
The umbilical cord.
Yeah. Have fun out there. Yeah. And that's a wrap.
Eat garlic.
Bye.
Wind Reel in Print is a podcast by Salad Brain Productions. You can find us on Instagram at Wind Reel in Print Pod. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. And please, if you like the show, leave a rating and review. We'll see you next time.